Right, it's still a bit messy, but we'll start anyway. We just had a nice discussion about impact and how you can design for impact, or if you even should worry about impact or focus more on the process. Oh, it's a bit too chaotic still. Can you please all lower your voices? Then we can continue the program. So the next round is where we will talk again about impact, but also about the position of a designer in this. But before I announce the next speakers, I really would like to call forward two people that make this all happen, that make this all possible. And that is Jeske van Oosten from the Stimuleringsfonds and Louis Beringer from the EU YPO. Yeah, please do. Two funding organizations on stage, yeah. Good to meet each other. I'll start with you because I mentioned you're ladies first. Fine with me, ladies first. Jeske, you're from Stimuleringsfonds. Why did you choose for this event? Why would you like to make this possible?
Yeah, I think at the Creative Industries Fund we really see that the demand for social design is growing. And me, myself, I'm the program leader of 3 programs that have a focus on the living environment. So it's an architectural program, actually. And within this, we try to stimulate the input of design or design thinking on complex social issues. So like healthcare and education, and also the law, the omgevingswet. Oh, that's really difficult. The law of
environmental
participation, yeah, for local government.
But you say it garnered a lot of attention lately, social design. Does it also mean there's more money involved? Because I think people want to know.
I think, well, this is, the coming year is the last year of our period. I think that that takes some time. So I think that in the future, the amount of money will grow, but also because it's stimulated not only from the Ministry of Culture, but also we see from the Ministry of Health that there is more stimulants for design thinking to focus on healthcare problems. And yeah, and also we have a new collaboration right now that we're trying with the Agis Innovatiefonds, so Innovation Funds, which is a, how do you call it? Not a public, but a private funding. So I think what we see is that there are, from many different directions, the call for social design is growing, yes.
It's really good to hear, and I think that's the same for the European Union, right? Because that's what you are representing. Yeah. Why are you here?
Yeah, well, actually, first, sorry, I'm no designer myself. In fact, I'm a boring EU civil servant, so I represent the European Union. In fact, I work for the European Union Intellectual Property Office, and basically we are organizing a European, well, worldwide event, a competition, an awards design competition. And I'm actually here because we are looking for winners. So we are looking for designers.
Now they're suddenly all filming you.
Yeah, exactly. We are here because this competition takes place every 2 years. First edition took place in 2016 in Milan, 2018 in Warsaw, and 2020 here in Eindhoven together with the Dutch Design Week. So in a year's time, we will be celebrating and we will be giving away our awards. And of course, social design is an important part of the current design and the European design. We have been witnessing that because last year, finalists, we had like sustainable design that were finalists. Also, let's call it a women-oriented design with young women entrepreneurs that themselves, they have created everything in a very sustainable and responsible way. And we have been witnessing that social design is already a trend, very well settled for industrial design in Europe. And by the way, we have also witnessed that in the European Union, industrial design is an engine for economic development. So this is why European Union were supporting design, social design and industrial design through those awards. So we want to reward the designers for that. So please participate.
And then maybe a really practical one, but how can they apply?
Well, as from today, the possibility of applying is open. Please go to our website.
That is W.
Yeah, EUIPO means European Union Intellectual Property Office, EUIPO.europa.eu. I repeat, EUIPO.europa.eu. But if you put in Google, if you Google us EUIPO or Design Europe Awards, it's over there, you will find us. Good luck.
I think they will find you during drinks. Thanks a lot for sharing this, and thank you all for making this happen.
Thank you very
Okay, give them a hand. Okay, and then I would like to call forward Nicky and Nicky Liebregts and Tove Elfferich. I always mix the two of you up, but thanks a lot for being here. And the two of you will speak about ownership and design. And as I was told, you own the stage, you own the public. So I leave this up to you guys to discuss.
Thank you. Is this working?
Yeah, I think it's working now. It's a good thing it only works now, else you could have heard all the chit-chat we were having. Hi everyone, my name is Nicky Liebregts. I'm a social designer, I'm based in Rotterdam. I always say that I try to make discussions about our future more accessible for a broader audience. And I do that by wrapping it in an accessible or a tempting experience. And today I'm going to talk about one of my projects, Klus Plus, which was partly realized by support of Stimuleringsfonds. And I'm here with Tove.
Yes, my name is Tove. I work at Morgenmakers. We're a social design company. You can recognize some of my colleagues in the audience by the pink button. And you could say in the core of our work is creating connections. We create connections between people, connections between organizations, between organizations and people, because we do that by facilitating processes or creating interventions, because we think when you bring people together, you support them and you give them the right tools, that's the start of innovation and supported solutions for challenges that we face today.
Yes, so when we say we own the stage, or when Danielle says so, we're curious if we actually should own the stage completely ourselves. The question to you guys is, what would you guys like this discussion to be about? Not just what you think this discussion is about, but what would you guys like us to discuss?
I think maybe it's nice to give a little bit background. We know each other from study.
Yeah.
And Nicky called me a few weeks ago, like, would you like to do this talk with me, talk about ownership? I was enthusiastic. I said, yes, let's do this. And 2 weeks later, we talked to prepare this discussion, and we found out ownership is so broad, and you have so many aspects of ownership. So we are really wondering, what do you expect to hear here today?
Yeah.
So please take a minute to talk with your neighbors. What about ownership do you expect to hear? Would you like to hear today? It's yours. You own this conversation now. Oh.
All right. So I see lots of interesting conversations taking place. We have our moderator, Danielle, who is in the field right now to harvest all of these discussions. So Danielle, can you share with us some insights from the audience or some topics that we want to touch upon?
They're all pointing at you now.
All right. I was just talking to the people around me about like the lack of supporting the problem of the briefing that designers get to work from. So what is happening right now, they get a brief from a government or they get a briefing from a company, and they try to involve people within that problem. And for me, what's important in this design process is to start with a community, really asking the community, question that I got, is it really that important for you guys, or do we need to change the briefing? So it's about connecting first and then going into the briefing, and maybe even making the briefing together with the company, together with the municipality, and together with the community that you're working with.
Yeah, so making sure that the voice of the municipality is actually the voice of the people. Okay.
Anyone else? Yeah.
What do you do when the participants you're working with are reluctant to work with you?
Oh.
So you want to share the ownership, but maybe people don't want it shared with you.
Okay, so reluctance to share. Maybe one more. I see some hands behind you.
Yeah, I will go to the back, but you have to shout a bit because I can't reach you. Yeah, if you like.
Or we can end.
Well, my question, or the topic that I would like to see the discussion about, is it's partly related also to the first one, but in the process of doing a project, whether you're a social designer with an own company or you're working within a company, when your project is over, what happens? So is it that you design ownership during the process with end users, but what's the role of your, maybe the organization that you're working or the place you got your brief from, and who's responsible for what?
All right, so the overdracht. I'm thinking about the afterlife of the project.
You had enough? Because I think there are more people who had some ideas.
One more, yes?
Can we harvest some more? Yeah? It's your lucky day.
Who's the owner of the social world? Because many companies with a lot of money, Google, Apple, Amazon, Alibaba, etc., Renault, also a sponsor of the Dutch Design Week. So who owns our social life and interaction, etc.?
Yeah.
Okay, Nicky, I think we did quite a good job preparing this talk, because I think most of the topics that we heard, we will discuss a little bit. We wrote along so we can have a look at what you guys said. And I think we also really want to invite you, like, we are discussing the topic. We don't have all the answers. So sorry, I'm not sure if we have an answer for your question already, but please feel free to join the discussion. Raise your hands, stand up, and you will come with the mic, and we can talk together.
Yeah.
So, Nicky, why do you think this is an important topic to talk about?
Well, I think it's already interesting that also from the audience and the little discussions that we had beforehand, is that ownership is not just about one aspect of the design process, but it shows itself in a lot of different areas, from who owns the issue, who owns the social life or the challenges that come with it, to how do you create an ownership with a reluctant person that you've designed for, or what happens with the project after you leave as a designer. So I see a lot of different roles for the designer to support ownership in all of these areas, and maybe also to give confidence to the people that you are working with, that they can be the owner of the thing that you are working on. Yeah. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think before we talked about making impact. As a designer, like you say, you can be in a project and then you can change something, you can maybe make a little bit impact at that moment, but then when you leave a project, you want that impact to continue and maybe even grow. So I think that's why it's very important to create ownership, not between us designers, but for the people we work with, to see that the project can grow when we leave.
Yeah.
My colleague said we are like the motor that we have to turn on, electric car, say the motor of an electric car. Then we leave, but we need someone that continues driving the car and spreads the word and creates, continues making impact without us. I think that's why it's very important that we talk about this.
Yeah, and then you have the drivers of the car, but also the people maintaining the car, and so there's also different roles with different types of owners after the project ended. I think we will also touch upon it. But when we try to make kind of a linear arrangement of how the ownership evolves from the start of the project to the end, we realize there's actually a step before it, right?
Yeah. Because what makes these social challenges that we work on so complex, they're often called complex societal challenges, is that there is not one owner of this problem. When we talk about climate change, inclusion, loneliness, it's all shared ownership often that we see in these projects. So then the question is, with who do we work to make an impact on these topics?
Yeah, and it also takes confidence to step forward and to say, okay, I'm going to do something about it, because by claiming ownership, you also kind of take on maybe a responsibility to do something with it. At least that's always the fear that I have when I say, okay, I will commit myself to this. Then I feel responsible to the people I get involved or that I involve with a process to do something with it.
Yeah, so ownership feels very big to say you take ownership of something.
But you guys also work a lot with projects that are in the end kind of subsidized, or maybe they come from, they are financed indirectly by tax money, or
Municipality, government,
Yeah, because what I always wonder is if the money comes from people in the shape of tax, if it's also that your project is financed by it, that you kind of do something back for those people. So in turn, you kind of take the responsibility to do something for the issues that are playing in their role, especially with subsidized
it's the organizations that benefit, of course, from the project that often subsidize or pay for it.
Shall we go on by telling quickly about our case? Kind of?
I think we are here together on stage because we both did a project, both a bit similar, and we thought it might be interesting to put those next to each other and see how ownerships, is involved in these projects. Maybe before we do that, is there anyone in the audience that feels like he wants to add something already? Say something, has a question?
I think it's a very interesting topic to think about. And when you were talking, I realized we're talking about social design and then ownership as a separate thing. But if you look at it, for example, from a product design perspective, then there's also packaging design, there's retail design, there's end-of-life design, there's, like circular design. Don't we need ownership designers, maybe, or is that a weird thought?
Interesting.
It's an interesting.
Does anyone want to reply to this?
I really like that point, actually. Do we need ownership designers? Because what I would want to bring in is this new idea of the sharing economy that is actually a renting economy, where bigger companies start owning things they don't own and you don't own them either anymore. Like, for example, Airbnb, you can make the most money by selling something that costs nothing. So in this world where people start to appreciate ownership for themselves less, how do we keep the people that do own things responsible?
Well, it's already
I don't know. I don't have the answers.
Well, if I think about the first question, I think you talked about it a bit maybe as well. The way I see it is that ownership is always a part of the process that you are doing. But maybe it's true that some designers have better skills in the area of facilitating kind of this ownership. maybe those are designers that you want to work with if you focus yourself on other qualities.
Maybe after the day we have a new discipline within social design, ownership
that would be cool,
designers.
Actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
I propose we continue to our projects.
Yeah, maybe
Is
to our
it okay
case.
if I interrupt? Because
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
not owning this conversation, but if you say we can compare it to product design, and I like that idea, I think with ownership and social structures, it's pretty difficult to own a thing that is always fluid, because it will always evolve and change. And often in social projects, you have front runners, people that feel responsible, but that's hardly sustainable. So I do think there is a challenge in making a sort of, well, ownership designer, because it will evolve, and it's a sort of relay race. But I wonder if I now start a completely different discussion, but...
Well, with the thing about like the sharing economy, or this thing like swap feeds or things like that, it feels as if you have to take a bit less responsibility yourself. I mean, if I see the way those bikes are treated, since people are a bit less the owner themselves, they can also allow themselves to be a bit less responsible about it. I don't know really what the implication of this development is, but it's interesting to...
Food for thought. Just continue your project.
I will go quickly through my case, and then Tove will talk a bit about hers. They're quite similar, and when we talk a bit about them, then we have something concrete to talk about. So the project I'm doing right now is Klus Plus, and here you see a lot of old people, including me. No. Well, this is actually an activity that they do at Stichting Humanitas in Rotterdam, which is belly dancing. So a lot of the seniors there, they have a belly dancing club, and in this club they explore their body, and they're busy with movement, maybe also about... it's about confidence, and it's about working towards the show. So it's actually kind of already not just an entertaining activity, but something that gives you a purpose. And Klus Plus is very much about purpose, because what we see in most activities for elderly people is that they organize themselves around some kind of social entertainment. And the questions that are asked to the elderly people are often about what can we mean for you, and not so much what can you mean for us. So with Klus Plus, Manon van Hoekel and I, we decided to take this philosophy of what can you mean for us, and to start a job agency for elderly people together with Humanitas. This is the way we started it. We tried to kind of enter the lives of these people that we wanted to design together with, to see what kind of activities they do, the way they look at the world. And we noticed that a lot of them kind of have talents behind their initial story. So you kind of have to dig with them about the things that they used to do when they were younger, their interests, their wishes for the world. And by asking them, what can you mean for us? We try to help them reflect on what they want to do for their environment. And by doing something for your environment or your neighborhood, you also feel of worth yourself. So it's about activating people to increase their self-worth. This is one of the elderly people we put through Klus Plus. This is Teresa, and she didn't consider herself a gardener, but she has a whole balcony full of Portuguese cabbage and all kinds of beans. And when we put her into kind of this Klus Plus job agency service, we realized that she really needed a bigger place where she could grow vegetables, and maybe it was a neighborhood garden where other people from the neighborhood could come and learn from Teresa. So she's actually one of our pioneering Klus Plusers. So right now we've developed this method where we do this talent scan with the elderly person, and we try to find a company in their neighborhood where they can go to work. So this is Atje, and she's a fan of cooking, but she cannot cook a lot herself in her own house. And we found a place that does catering, and now she helps with this catering company. And this is a concept that we kind of developed together with Humanitas, and where we saw that first they kind of saw us as outsiders, so we were the ones with the strange ideas, the new input, like another way of looking at elderly people. We figured that if we wanted them to feel like the owner as well, we have to find people that they recognize the same qualities in as they recognize in us. So before we kind of leave this project, we are now looking at attracting more volunteers to Humanitas and writing the job descriptions for them. So they have people like Sophie, who is one of the klus coaches. And Sophie is a designer herself. And with her way of looking at things and combining the talents and the interests of the elderly people, she's really busy with activating an elderly person and not so much about what kind of help this person needs. And we're also connecting with other organizations like Rotterdammers voor elkaar, which is a voluntary platform where you can actually go and look for these volunteers, but also place little jobs for the elderly people. So right now we're trying to spread the concept and this philosophy from ourselves to Humanitas and the volunteers that they have and platforms that are already available to integrate this into. That's in short Klus Plus. I think I still talked a lot about it. Sorry, Tove. Now I own it too much, so it's back to you.
You can click. That's fine, thank you. This is Project Stratum Werkt. Stratum is an area in Eindhoven. And it was initiated by the Municipality of Eindhoven. They worked together in a pilot project with other municipalities in the Netherlands. And they wanted to do a project about employment. And when people are unemployed, in Dutch we say afstand tot de arbeidsmarkt. So when people are not participating in society for a long time, so I'm talking about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, something happens with those people. And it gets harder and harder to get back into society. So the municipality said, we would like to see if we can come up with something new, different, more focused on the people, to see if we can support these people even after 15 years to get back into society. So for that, we made a program, me together with Bärbel van Zanten, also a designer here in Eindhoven, with those people and for those people that have been at home for a long time. Because what you see when people lose their job, they kind of start missing their daily routine. There is no reason to go out anymore, well, maybe groceries or anything. So after a long time, what you see is happening is that they also get isolated, a lot of those people, because they are not so in touch with so many people anymore, no reason to stay out. So the network becomes smaller, and well, maybe a lot of you know how if you have a big network, it's easier to get new projects, to get work, to find work, to get in touch with people. So seeing that, we started this project with bringing people together. It didn't matter how old you were, what your background was, as long as you were motivated to participate again. So all different ages joined this group. We started 2 years ago with a group of 12 people that were motivated to start working again. And the program was a 10-week workshop in which we motivated, inspired people again to be more positive about themselves and to see what their talents were. We taught along with each other in the group, to become more confident again, to take next step to participate in society again. And for some people that was 2-day voluntarily work a week. For others that is really 5 days full-time paid work. After those 10 weeks, in which we also visited different locations in Stratum to broaden their perspective about their environment and surroundings, people had an individual plan. You see it in the folder that's on the table. That was kind of their portfolio that they were building. Here we visited different places. People got an individual plan to work on. At the same time that we ran this, we gathered a group of voluntary people from Stratum that became coach. So it was just people living in the area that wanted to support someone that lived also in their area. We organized a speed date evening, so participants and coaches from the area met with each other. We made matches, and that is how the program continued on an individual level, that people got motivated, helped to continue and practice out their plan. All to trust in themselves again and find a nice place that suits them, very briefly. And now maybe it's interesting to say that so we run this one pilot, then we learned a lot, of course, from what works, what doesn't work. We did it a second time, and now we just finished the 3rd round with participants. And now is also the moment that we said as designers, we're not gonna run this program anymore. It's time that the municipality takes over and continues with the project. So this is a slide where we're gonna put these projects next to each other, right?
Yeah, I'm already thinking, I hear you say something about the role of the municipality now in taking over the project, but they were also there when the project started, because someone mentioned earlier this voice of the municipality, is it the voice of the people? Was it something that you also investigated?
I think we were very lucky in the initiating phase of this project that the municipality realized that they didn't have the answers. So from the beginning, some people that had been home for like years and years also joined to think along about the project and how it should look like. Yeah.
So it already felt a little bit like it was their project and not just something the municipality threw at them.
Yeah. And I think now I say this, it's interesting that this Stratenwerk was really put out there as a pilot. So we kept on saying things can go wrong and we can learn from our mistakes. But this also gave the people that we worked within the municipality the freedom to explore and make mistakes. Because you often see, I think, when the program starts, an owner of this project or the ones who pays wants it to go, get out results. And here we were so free to just explore. That was really nice.
Yeah, it makes me think about when you say, you keep mentioning that it's a pilot, then there's kind of this, I don't know, the space for experimentation. How do you create the kind of trust or the confidence in the people you work with to go along with this? That you are the one that also kind of takes ownership over this, or...
Yeah.
I don't know,
I think it's very important to take the organization, the people with that work within the organizations, to involve them in your way of thinking, your way of working, showing them, inviting them to sessions that we had. To see the result and the things we're doing.
But were they saying like different things in the start than they were in the end? Did you notice their attitude was different?
I think they just became more and more enthusiastic, actually.
Yeah, they were already a bit enthusiastic and they became... Because
I know... okay if we engage the audience in again?
Yeah,
there's someone with an urgent question.
Yeah, I was thinking, when we talk about ownership, as social designers, we enter territories of other disciplines, right? So a lot of social workers are trying to do this with local communities as well. And on a larger scale, you have verander managers, I don't know, change makers. Is that a discipline? Change making. The question to you is, what do you think the key value of design is in these type of projects?
The key value of design? As in the value that design adds to these processes.
What did you do that a social worker wouldn't do?
What I noticed was that this attitude that we had of seeing kind of not helping the elderly people, but to take a fresh perspective on them and seeing what they could do for others. Kind of this different mentality of turning something around and seeing what happens. This was something that Humanitas at least was very unfamiliar with. At the same time, that meant that this mentality was in us as designers. So every time we would come around, the project was there because we were carrying this mentality. So it became our role then, after we had this mentality, to kind of awaken this mentality in the people that we were working with. So once the idea was there, it was all about getting them into the same philosophy. And I realized that by designing something, so we designed really this methodology with cards to help them reflect on the talent, and this thing became like the embodiment of the philosophy. So it became a thing, and they recognize it as, this is the thing that has this philosophy. And because this talent scan started to do something with the elderly people that they would always work with, but now suddenly a lot of shy people they used to work with would suddenly step forward and partake in this. They saw also this attitude change in the people that they were used to work with. So I think as a designer,
answer your question?
I would like to add something. Because I think we have this mindset that we create, I guess, but also we create space when we work with organizations, because we are the designers that can do and try whatever we want and make mistakes. So in the first round of Stratenwerk, we just run the program alone. Then the second round, social workers from Bij Eindhoven joined the program, and they saw the impact that we could have, and they invited their bosses for the end presentation. And now the third round, after the third round, was decided that these few people that worked at Bij Eindhoven get space, hours within their organization to be involved in this project. So it's also really showing and creating literally space to implement.
Is it also that this space or this time is time that you can kind of use from them for them to also become owners?
I think so.
So they need to have the space also to go through this process to become owners, maybe.
I think so, yes.
We have another eloquent question from here.
This adds on to your question and both of your projects, the Bij Eindhoven. So I spoke to some people at Bij Eindhoven and Buitengewone. So zoiets. They do a talent, some kind of talent thing. So of course it depends, the talent survey or something, if it's already matching to place people because of the participatie. People have, if they're on uitkering or something, they have to participate, right? So anyhow, so some of this, how it's situated, it goes to that social work, and so what the motivations of that system is too, and what kind of talent, how do we really pull that out? Yeah, do you know what I mean? I see the kind of design having a little different attitude that can add something here, and I'm just kind of struggling with it. And then how you deal then, or create space for Bij Eindhoven to really start a kind of move toward a sort of like with the attitude of plus plus. Yeah, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, perhaps if I'm allowed to, I could rephrase it, because I think you were about to answer that. How will you design yourself out of that system? Because you're now the designer within that system, setting up everything. How can you make it sustainable and designing yourself out of it?
So we said it's about creating space within the organization so they can start joining. Last round of Stratenwerk that we run, there were always 2 people from Bij Eindhoven that joined the program. And now soon we will have an overdrachtsmoment, moment that we're going to transfer the material, so the folder that we created, the contact list that we have. But in principle, they have run the whole program with us, every workshop, all the locations, so they know the program. But to be honest, it is a bit scary to let go and to see how they are gonna run it. No guarantees there, I think, but it's a good next step.
How would an ownership designer do such a thing? Anyone? You were thinking about it, right? Yeah.
I was actually wondering what would have happened if you would not have run the workshops. What if you, from the start, would have not been involved in that way?
Then I think we should. The workshops are very. So to say we start with a workshop in which we sit with the group together, the first workshop, everyone is a bit nervous about what's going to happen. And then we start with an exercise. Someone can say his name and his age and a little bit about the background. And then everyone else has to write something about that person. And then you get a profile from the person, which was for the people participating very a new way of doing things. And I think we could have thought about this exercise and then ask someone else to do it. But then I would not have been able to learn from how that would have turned out to do it another time different, maybe, or not.
Yeah, because it was a bit of a research session as well, probably.
You could say so, yeah. I think we really needed to do these workshops to feel what works and what doesn't work, in order to, make a finalized program that we can hand over. Yeah, because so to say, I think.
If I look at some of the projects that we do, sometimes I think for all of us social designers, it's a valkuil. Anyone?
A trap.
Yeah. A trap for social designs, that we sort of design a system in which everyone should have a designer mindset or do designer things. I don't know. I don't think that's. Well, I think that's a trap for us, actually. Yeah.
Can I respond to it a little bit? Because I see that the role, like the role that the Humanitas has and that the elderly have in this case, it's not like they carry this design mindset throughout. I see kind of a shift in roles for myself throughout the process, from first being a designer to then kind of boosting their confidence to then supporting them to be proud of the project also, because you see that they become ambassadors for this philosophy. So I think it's also at the same time a trap to only think about design as kind of this one kind of role that you have throughout the project. So similarly to my role changing, I also see the role of Humanitas changing, because first they are the connector to the elderly people, then they become kind of colleagues for the project, and they become klus coaches as well. Then they start to share the philosophy, so you see their role also changing.
Co-ownership coming into being. Good. Yeah. There is time for 3 more questions. The 2 of you had an urgent question. One over there. Is there another one? Okay, we'll manage. Then I'll start with you, but keep it short and sweet.
I wanted to add to that I think it's... So you already talked a lot about the change in roles, but something that we've done as designers is train our skill to create something out of existing stuff or out of nothing, and then make something new. So it's a lot about opportunities also, and then sharing those opportunities with others. But I also feel that in the later phases of projects, it's not always necessary anymore to create something new. So I would say to answer to the question of the lady next to the wall, this trained skill of creation is also something that is different, I guess, from social workers doing a project like this.
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect to it from my own experience. When I was doing a project like that, we most of the time had the discussion already up front on the table, so the ownership and the roles, and that most of the time also capability training was part of the process. So of course you don't know the outcome up front, right? But you talk already about it, so we go first in this discovery, and then you also teach basically the principles, so they can also take up the ownership later on. And I feel that it's always a good thing up forehand to discuss this, like how does this work, how are we going to do this, and who is doing what.
Yeah, I think to respond to that, I also think it was a search for us in the beginning, who feels owner about this program? Is it the social workers organization by Eindhoven? Is it the municipality? Is it maybe people that we meet in the area that says like, I want to run this program next? So I think also by doing it, people gathered and said, we think this is important and we want to be involved. So that was also a process. But I understand if it's clear who should be involved in the beginning, it's good to make that clear.
Already, maybe that if the conversation is there, it's not that already is important. Maybe you don't have the answers yet, but at least the importance of there is also an end result by itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Good one. Then the final question up here.
Okay. If I'm right, you are giving back. Now you are saying to the people take charge of your life. So to take back your ownership. That is what I'm reading between the lines. Is that correct?
Yeah. Actually, we had prepared much more to talk about, but there's like this red thing blinking here. But that's what it comes to. How do you give people space to, and how do you empower them to, to start taking this?
I think it's very important, especially in this week, because it's yesterday we spoke between the public space and the private intervenient, but in between we as humans we have to take part also and to take back our own ownership and to throw out our smartphone.
That's the different debate. We do that on Friday. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, some final takeaways from you two.
Yeah.
What did you learn from this session?
I think that there's a lot to talk about, and there's not really one way to create ownership, and it really depends on the project and the size and everything. But I think it's very important that we as designers keep on talking about this and exchange knowledge also on how we do this within projects and our own experiences to learn more from each other and to,
I would also advise people, because we, for example, with Plus, we really reserved kind of part of the time that we had to learn about doing ownership. If we want to do more projects like this, we also have to keep on reflecting on this skill of ownership so that it does not come and go, but then we start to realize how we can facilitate for it. So make also space for kind of these meta processes, learning processes in your project. Yeah.
Thank you both. Thanks a lot for sharing this, setting up this dialogue.